guys, I wanted to show you something really quick. We have different types of snakes in our house, and I'm going to kind of show you examples of some beginners type snakes up to some intermediate and advanced level snakes. And I'm going to explain to you why that is, why we categorize a lot of these different snakes the way we do. And this is to help people that have never had a snake before, that are considering getting one, to decide the temperament they want to go with, the care level they want to go with. Do they want something that's really easy to take care of, or do they want something that's a little bit more complex or challenging when it comes to husbandry with humidity, temperatures, things like that. And there's also the aspect of size that comes into play, and then safety when it comes to like what would be a good snake for your family. What I kind of want to demonstrate is the difference between the snakes that need you to use a snake hook, that need you to tap train them, and then snakes that don't need you to tap train them or hook train them. And what I mean by that is some snakes are reactive snakes. They have a high food drive, or we also call that a food response. We also call it having a good food response, which just generally means that the snake a lot of the time is just really hungry. Like if you walk by their tank, they might be looking at you, they might be honing in on movement that they see around, and they might mistake something for a prey item because they just have a good food response. It's not anything bad. It's just that certain snakes, especially boa constrictors like Hartley here, and reticulated pythons, and some of the others, they just have a good food response. So you just have to respect that, and you have to keep that in mind when you want to get them out and handle them. A good rule of thumb is to be careful if you do choose to handle snakes like this on feeding day. You can do it, but they're going to have food on the brain, definitely, because they are very smart and they do know when their day comes to eat. So say if you feed your snakes every Sunday, they know that. They recognize that pattern. So a couple of days before Sunday gets here, they're going to be looking around for food. They're going to be anticipating it. And this is Wednesday, so this is 2 days after they have already eaten. But because boa constrictors, reticulated pythons, snakes such as those have a good food response and they're hungry a lot of the time, even though it's a few more days until they eat again, they're still thinking about it. So that's why you wouldn't just want to reach in here and grab her. Even if you were going to go to the back of her body, you don't want to do that generally, because you just want to establish safe handling measures. Before I walked up to this tank, she was being reactive. She was, every little movement that I made in front of her tank, she was anticipating that it was something to eat. And when I start moving again, see if I can get her to kind of respond to what I'm doing. She'll start tongue flicking, because that's how they smell, sense what's going on. But I've got my snake hook here, and while they're young you can have a small one like this, but when they get to be fully grown, she can push about 10 feet when she's fully grown and get a lot bigger around than she is right now. But obviously at that point I would need a much larger snake hook, but while they're young I can use this size. This size is a great one for a lot of the snakes that don't get on the bigger side, like king snakes, corn snakes, ball pythons, things like that. But after they get to a certain size, you would want to upgrade your snake hook to a larger one. But I'm going to just show you what you need to do in the event that you decided that you wanted to get her out. And it's very, very simple. You take your snake hook and you gently tap them on the head with it. You don't really tap them, you just kind of gently touch them with it, and it's cold. And the reason that you do that, before you go in here to pick them up from behind with your hand, is because the snake hook is metal, so it doesn't register any heat, it's cold. Unlike your hand, which is the same temperature as a mouse would be. So if you were to just reach in here with your hand, and she sensed the heat from your hand, then you would probably get bitten. And it wouldn't be, you know, that they want to bite you. It's a mistake. It's that you weren't paying attention to what you were doing and you used an improper handling technique or an improper handling measure. So when you tap them or when you touch them on the head with this, all you're doing, and you do it every time, you don't ever forget to do this. You're establishing to them that it's not time to eat. That's all you're doing. You're turning off a light switch. Because if they are in food mode and you open this tank and you are not paying attention, you will get bitten and you will get wrapped. But what I mean by that is these are constrictors, so they will wrap your arm. Their teeth are recurved, so they are designed to hook onto you. And you're not going to be able to get them off unless you run them under cold water, use Listerine mouthwash. Sometimes, especially with reticulated pythons, you can bite their tail and it'll get them to let go. But you really want to avoid getting bitten and wrapped. You can also get tagged. Now what that means is you're going to get a quick defensive bite. They're going to bite you really quick and they're going to let go. You're going to bleed still, but they're going to let go, and it's like a warning. It means leave me alone. But in the event that a constrictor, if Harley were to be a lot bigger and I were to hold her by myself, which that's another point I'm going to get to, you wouldn't want to get wrapped by one of these, especially in the wrong spot. Getting wrapped on your arm, one thing. Getting wrapped around the neck, that's another thing. If you don't have another adult around to help you, if they're fully grown, like between 6 and 10 feet, then you might be in some trouble. But nonetheless, I'm going to show you how to get her out. I'm touching her on the head. Okay, I'm turning that response off. Alright. I'm coming back behind her once I have done that with the hook. And I'm picking her up. So, she wanted to bring a plant with her. We can always put that back. But that is how you, she really likes our plant. But that is how you remove a snake like this from its enclosure without getting bitten. Without them mistaking your hand for food or anything like that. And she's still looking around. She's still alert because I just took her out and she's just checking everything out. She knows that I've removed her. But this is what you want. You don't want to reach in there and grab them and have a problem. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. You just want to be really careful and you want to practice safe handling measures. And as you can see behind her, Ripley is a reticulated python. He's a super dwarf. And he has the same tendency. Reticulated pythons are a lot similar to boa constrictors when it comes to the food response they have. So this is yet another snake that you would want to be careful with getting out to handle, because you just want to pay attention. You don't want to, you know, misread their body language and then have a problem. Because reticulated pythons, fully grown, their bites are pretty bad, just like a boa, but a lot of people say it's worse. So you just want to be careful because you want to respect these animals for what they are. You want to learn how to properly hold them and handle them and remove them from the enclosure. You just want to be smart about it. That's literally it. You just want to be smart about it. Now let me show you something else, particularly with Ripley, okay? He's looking straight up because he knows that this over here, when I tap this little latch right here, this is where we put his mouse in at. He remembers that, because remember what I said, they're smart. They're very smart animals. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to what happens when I open this. Watch how fast this happens. Did you see that? Now, if you had your hand in the way, he's anticipating that you're going to put a mouse in there for him. So if you had your hand in the way and I didn't pull away quick enough, he could have definitely gotten me. Not because he's trying to hurt me, not because he wants to eat me, but because he is used to us putting his food in through there. That's how he eats. That's what he's used to. He recognizes that pattern that happens for him every Sunday. So now, a responsible thing to do in the event that you have opened a latch like this and you want to close it back, you could reach up there with your hand, but you risk him coming up there again and accidentally tagging you. So a better thing to do is to take the hook, because if he comes up to the hook, he's not going to do anything to you. It's the hook. So I usually take the hook and I latch it back. And did you see how when he heard this hit, when he heard this lay back down before I latched it, he heard that, he felt that vibration, and he went back up here again. So that's why having a snake hook like this is a very beneficial tool to have when you have a snake like this. Now, would I recommend a reticulated python or a boa constrictor for a beginner? No. And the reason why is because if you don't do your research and you don't respect the animal, you don't work on hook training, you don't understand the things that can happen, you can run into a big problem and just have too much snake on your hands. Alright, so we're going to use Caw as another example. He is another boa constrictor and he is hungry a lot. So we also feed him through this latch up here, and he knows that. So touch him on the head. This teaches him that it's not time to eat. You see how he's backing away like that? That's a good sign. So he's understanding that this is not food. This is not food time. So you just have to be careful. That's literally all it is. If you're careful, then you're going to be completely fine. Because yes, he sits right here a lot and he anticipates being fed. This is like his spot that he sits and waits for food. But if you know what you're doing and you use a snake hook and you establish with him that it's not time to eat, then he will understand that. He will learn that pattern just like all the other snakes. Now, same thing. We have established with him that it's not time to eat, so I can safely take him out and hold him. See how easy that is? It's very easy when you do things the right way. If you don't do things the right way, that's where you get bitten. You can 100% avoid having a problem if you do things the right way. These are fantastic snakes, one of my favorites. I absolutely love boa constrictors. But like I said, you just have to be careful, you know. And boas too, do you see how he's trying to come out? They tend to want to go up because they like to go in the trees. So a lot of times if you try to put them back in at first, they will try to go up and out of the tank again. And they're strong, even when they're this young. He's just now over a year. They're still really strong snakes. So you really want to be careful, because you can actually have one of them try to come up in here and get caught in the wire or in the rack. In between the rack under another tank, and you really don't want that. But yeah, that's another boa constrictor that I wanted to get out for you and show you the hook technique with. Now I'm going to show you a different type of snake that is, in my opinion, a much better snake for a beginner or someone that has kids, like small kids. Like this is like your first snake and you've never had one. This is a good one to start with. It's a ball python. These generally you don't have to hook train at all. These generally you don't have to worry about at all. Sometimes we've got one or two that have been defensive before, and that's just their personality. Majority of the time, when you get these from a hatchling and you raise them up and you handle them frequently, they will get very used to it. They have a very mellow temperament. They don't have a high food drive. Their food response is not the same as a boa constrictor or a reticulated python. So with these, genuinely, you still want to pay attention, but you can still reach in from the back and just grab them, and it's totally fine. So in this situation, it's just a completely different temperament, really. And I mean, like I said, this is one of the best snakes, honestly, just all around. And you know, people try to say, okay, ball pythons are not good beginner snakes because sometimes they can go on food strikes, and that's true. But if you know how to, if you know about husbandry, you know how to keep their humidity and temperatures right, and they're not stressed out or anything like that, then feeding is usually easy. You can get them back on food even if they go off of food. But this is an example of a snake that I would highly recommend for a family or children. And here's another one for you, real easy. Just gonna pick her up. This is a baby. She's got a very good personality. They do still have different personalities, but ball pythons in general, fantastic temperament. I'll show you the exception. Is the exception because she has a defensive personality. That's just her personality. If you were not paying attention and you pulled her tub out, she would tag your hand, because this is where she sits a lot of the time, especially in the evenings. And that is just how she is. She's our only one that's honestly like this. And once you get her out and everything, she's fine. She starts getting comfortable. But if she's in here and you are real quick about pulling her tub out and you're not paying attention and you put your hand in her face, she does not like that. Now, this is a snake that I don't let other people hold because I know how she is. I know her personality. Even though we've had her for a while and we handle her, this is just how she is. So every now and then, once in a blue moon, you'll get a ball python that might have this tendency. And it's not anything necessarily bad. You just have to be careful. You just have to pay attention. So obviously, I said you don't need a snake hook with these, but you still need to read their body language. There are people that just reach in and grab ball pythons. And it's just because everybody assumes that all ball pythons are the same when it comes to their personality and their temperament, like across the board. But you will have some, like Nala, that are a little bit different. And it just means that you have to hesitate first before you get them out. It just means that you have to pay attention to what they're doing before you try to get them out. You have to do things the right way. So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to come over here with Nala. And I've showed you this in another video too. There's another video I have about Nala and how to get her out. I'm going to reach in from behind. She knows I'm touching her, but I'm way back here with my hand, so she's not reaching back around. You just get her out like this and she'll be fine. Now, I'll put her back in here and show you something. So now she's going to try to get away, right? Because she didn't want to come out. She's going to try to get away. But if she were to be back up here sitting where she was sitting again and I just stuck my hand in her face, she would bite me. She would bite anybody that would do that. So that's something that, you still need to pay attention no matter what kind of snake you have. Here's another snake, or another type of snake we have. She is a corn snake. This is an adult female. They can be a little bit reactive. They're in the rat snake family, if you didn't know that. A lot of rat snakes are known to have a little bit of an attitude. These snakes are in the colubrid family. They move a lot quicker than pythons and boas, so that's something to remember when you're handling them. Obviously, she's going inside of her aspen because she really wants to hide. She doesn't really want to be bothered, but I'm going to show you. Corn snakes are reactive in that they just want to get away, usually. It's usually not an issue to where they want to hurt you, they want to bite you, or they, are being defensive. Some of them don't really care to be handled. So she's basically just displaying to me that she's trying to get away from me. She doesn't want me to touch her. So I usually just leave her alone. But she's still a really good girl. She knows I'm not feeding her because she's not acting that way. She's just kind of trying to get away. She just doesn't want to come out. So that's another example of a different kind of snake. But corn snakes are definitely a really good beginner snake if you're looking for something for your family to start out with. Their care is super simple. I mean, so simple compared to a lot of other snakes. So I do highly recommend corn snakes. Those and ball pythons, I would say, are my top two snakes I would recommend for beginners and people that have families.